What I'm actually going to talk to you about is time travel. So forget insights, forget strategy. Who here has read A Wrinkle in Time? Yes. So great kids book, also great for adults. But there is this concept in the book that I love of a tesseract, right? So it's a mathematical concept, but in the book it's used to time travel. And the analogy given in the book is an ant crossing a piece of string, right? So if the string is pulled out, long, the ant has to travel a long distance. But if you fold the string, the ant can jump from one point to the next. And I love this visualization because I think that AI is at its best when you can use it to really fold time, when you can do things that, like the last person said, would take days, weeks, months in seconds, right? I think the problem is that there's so many cool AI demos out there, right? They come out every single day or every single week, and then you go to ChatGPT and you try to have it do your job for you and it doesn't do it. And so the question is, like, how do you actually get to that amazing outcome? And I think part of the problem is that we have these expectations of what these foundation models can do, that I could just go to ChatGPT and have it, automate my entire job, and the reality is it's not there yet. But it actually is there. It's just that, like how I was saying earlier, you have to build the scaffolding to make it work that way. And so the point of this talk is I want to give you some frameworks you can use to actually build this stuff yourself and to, actually bring this reality to today. But if you're struggling with ChatGPT, all you have to do is type in this code and you're good. It's AGI. So, all right, back to time. So I think there's two really interesting ways of looking at, this kind of concept of time travel: collapsing time and expanding time. And I'm going to show you some cool examples about this. I'm going to use Waldo as a platform, but these principles should be universally applicable. So, all right, collapsing time. What do I mean by collapsing time? What I mean is, how do we take things that are high effort, high value for you today and do them in seconds, right? So classic example is like, I need to get smart for a pitch, right? Can you go to ChatGPT and enter in a brand name and a category and ask it some questions and get something, good? Sure, right? The problem is, if any of you have actually tried to do that, you type it in and you end up spending so much time, like, are there really sources? Like, are the sources valid? Do I have to validate the sources in the quotes? Am I asking the right questions? I have to go back and forth with it. And by the time you get through that whole process, you've lost most of the time savings, right? And you're not even sure if what you get is actually accurate or valid or any of that. So I want to show you a simple example of how we do this in Waldo, and then I will talk about some broader principles of how to do this in general. So this is what Waldo looks like. So we have over 50 workflows that mimic all the types of work that a strategist does in their daily work, from 4Cs to brand audits to culture trend scan, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to click a brand audit, and I'm going to type in just 4 words. So the brand name, Liquid Death, and the category, sparkling water, and hit launch. And in seconds, it will do an entire analysis on what Liquid Death is doing well, recent developments, brand perception, trends, and then take that and develop audiences and pull out messaging. And this is all real time. This isn't sped up at all. So in seconds, it can read hundreds or thousands of sources, give you a bunch of ideas on how to go deeper, pull in images and infographics that you can explore. Everything is clickable and highlightable. And like some previous demos here, I think I am a big believer in chat box second, GUI first. And so you can actually click and explore stuff here and go deeper in seconds. Now, one, I think, philosophical interesting point is, if any of you saw the OpenAI operator demo or any of this kind of stuff, I think their view of the future is you're going to have this agent that's going to go off and just do your stuff and come back 30 minutes or an hour later. I don't think that that's the future that we're actually driving towards. I think that what we will see, I think a much more productive way of working with these AIs is treating it like a peer, a partner, right? Like someone sitting at your desk. I think that's how you actually get the most value out of it now and in the future. So how do we actually do that? How do we go from like ChatGPT to something that's 100x as valuable? What frameworks we can use? So I think there are 3 key ingredients to making this possible, right? That you need to think about when you build these workflows. So sources, process, and customization. So on the sources bit, one thing that's become more and more obvious over the past months and year or two is that you can train these models on all sorts of information, but giving the models like a basic model, the information it needs in context when you run it is far more valuable than doing pre-training. So if you can hand the model amazing content, then you can create some really incredible things. So for example, like at Waldo, we don't only search the open web and give you region filters and dates and sources, but we pull in all your syndicated research and all your social media platforms. So we can pull in, any post that's being posted to Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, Reddit. And so, you can pull in live sentiment into this analysis tool. And same with ads. We can pull all the creative that your competitors are spending on Facebook and look at the images as part of a workflow and say, oh, they all have small dogs in them. There's a white space opportunity there. So, you need to think about what matters to you, but, what are the key sources you can include in that workflow? The second part is process. So I think this is actually overlooked or looked over, yeah. So when you build a workflow, you think, oh, I'm gonna put a few steps together and it's gonna be fine. But in reality, you need to think about these things as how would you do it yourself, right? So we have some amazing strategists on the team, and we basically mapped out, this is an example of the creative brief process. So each step in the process, exactly what needs to happen in that step. What sources do you need? What questions you need to ask? What logic should be passed from one to the next? And if you can really treat this thing like, how would I do it myself versus I'm just gonna trust the AI to build the best process for me, you can produce much, much better work. Now, last, customization. So I think this is also overlooked. I think people build these tools and they're like, great, it's gonna give me outputs. But the outputs it gives you are gonna be the same as everyone else's outputs, right? So how do you actually make it truly unique to your brand or your agency's lens on the world? And I think thinking about that and incorporating that is super critical. So an example of how we do this in Waldo is every workflow in Waldo is totally editable. So you can click the little edit button, and this is what the brand audit looks like on the back end, right? So you can come in here and you can create your own agentic tasks or click one that already exists, so like brand perception, for example. And if this matters to you as an agency, you can come in here and you can change exactly what searches it's doing, exactly what questions it thinks about when it does the research, what sources and date ranges it uses, what inputs, does it using, social media posts or files or, ads or all that kind of stuff. And so, what you can do here is think about like, okay, what do I care about from a perception standpoint? What is my unique lens? And build something really unique as part of that flow. All right, so the other framing that I think is really interesting here is expanding time. So if collapsing time is about taking high value, high effort work that you do today and getting it done in seconds, expanding time is about raising the ceiling, right? So what would you do if you had 10 or 100x as much time to do a certain task, right? And I think this is a really interesting way of framing as you kind of start to think about building these flows. So this is a neat example one of our clients built. It's a product innovation agency, but it's a research jumpstart workflow. So we're gonna use video games as the example. And I just wanna show you, first of all, on the top left, we show like, this ran in 4 minutes and saved about 500 hours of effective human time, right? And you can see all of the research it did on the left. But essentially what it did is it did a ton of work on competitors and trends, thousands of sources, and then it used all of that research to build, some tables, for example, and other things around ranking trends against each other, making it relevant for the brand. And you can see from the citation numbers, this is over 1,000 sources. And it didn't just pull from the web. So here is actually the Instagram posts that it read as part of its research and insights process. So you can literally have it read these live streams. So I think it's just really interesting to think about, and then it used this for category thought starters and marketing implications and white space opportunities and all that. But it's interesting to think about, again, if you were able to read 1,000 Instagram posts for a given, pitch, like what could you do with that information? And here's just one, other last kind of simple example, but this is a belief breaker workflow. So this agency built, they looked at, the status quo, weaknesses to strengths, true opposites. So you can build these strategy frameworks and then pair that with amazing sources. And in this case, unusual problems Grand Theft Auto can help with, improving urban planning skills through city exploration. Or I love this one, developing negotiation skills in multiplayer modes. So there's just some really, really cool stuff you can do if you had the time to do it. And so anyway, that's the thought I want to leave you with, which is I think that what we have found is that creativity is most constrained not by talent, but by time. And I think if you think about these things in that type of equation, I think you can build some really cool stuff. So anyway, come find me afterwards. I can show you some more cool stuff. Thank you very much.